Welcome to the deep dive. So, if you're leading a team or, managing a project, you know that problems rarely fit neatly into a spreadsheet.
Right.
Our mission today is to give you a tool, kind of a mental compass, to help you figure out exactly what kind of problem you're facing.
So you can stop applying the wrong approach.
Exactly. The wrong and maybe even disastrous approach.
And we're going to do that by diving deep into the Cynefin framework.
Which is pronounced, and let's get this right up front, Cynefin.
Cynefin. It's, at its heart, a sense-making tool for leaders. And the core idea is really powerful. It says that, traditional management theory, which is all grounded in this old Newtonian predictable science.
The world is a machine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That assumption it fails constantly in modern business because most of what we deal with isn't ordered at all.
And the name itself, Cynefin, it's a Welsh word.
It is.
And it speaks to all those tangled factors in our environment and our own experience that influence how we think, things we can't ever fully grasp.
It's the water we swim in. And the framework's insight is, it's pretty revolutionary. Good leadership is not one size fits all. A wise leader has to tailor their approach to the situation.
So the framework sorts issues into 5 contexts or domains. You've got 4 main ones: clear, complicated, complex, and chaotic.
And a 5th one right in the middle, which is called disorder. And we draw this hard line right down the middle of the framework.
Right, between the ordered and the unordered.
On one side, you have the ordered world. That's clear and complicated.
Yeah.
That's where you can use fact-based management. You can analyze your way to an answer.
And on the other side.
That's the unordered world,
Yeah.
complex and chaotic. And that requires pattern-based management. You have to let the answer emerge. You can't force it.
Okay, let's start on that comfortable side. The ordered side, the first context is called clear.
It used to be called simple. This is the domain of best practice.
This is the realm of the known knowns.
That's it. It's
Yeah.
all about stability. The cause and effect relationship is just. It's obvious to everyone. The right answer is self-evident.
Like processing a routine customer order.
Or following a set process, like measuring your carbon footprint using a very defined methodology. It's a recipe.
So the action sequence is simple. Sense, categorize, respond.
You see the facts, you put them in a bucket you've seen before, and you follow the established best practice.
And this is where command and control leadership actually works.
It's really the only domain where it's truly effective. You can delegate it, you can automate it.
But, and this is the crucial part, this domain is also incredibly dangerous.
It's the #1 source of catastrophic failure. The biggest danger is complacency. Success makes you blind.
And you start oversimplifying things. You treat a complex problem as if it were simple.
And that's the kiss of death, because you just skip the necessary analysis or probing. You think you know the answer when you don't.
So the safest feeling domain is actually the riskiest. And you have to remember, best practice is, by definition, past practice.
Which might not apply anymore. That line on the diagram between clear and chaotic isn't an accident. The most frequent collapse into chaos happens right from here.
So how do you protect against that?
Well, first, don't micromanage. Let the process work. But crucially, you have to create channels for dissent, even anonymous ones. You need someone to be able to raise their hand and say, hey, I think the ground is shifting under us.
Okay, so that's clear. What about when a problem is still solvable, but it takes a specialist? That's the next domain.
Right. Now we move into the complicated context. This is the domain of experts.
The realm of the known unknowns. We know what we don't know.
Precisely. Cause and effect can be figured out, but it is not obvious to just anyone. You need expert diagnosis.
So sending geologists to find oil deposits.
Perfect example.
Here.
Or having a team of engineers figure out the total carbon footprint of a huge global company. There isn't a simple recipe for that.
And the action sequence changes. It's now sense, analyze, respond.
Right. You have to analyze multiple options, and that takes expertise. And for a leader, that means listening to conflicting advice. There isn't one best practice here. There's just good practice. More than one right answer is possible.
And the big danger here is...
analysis paralysis.
Of course. The experts can't agree. They're all dug into their own perspectives.
Or worse, their egos. And you also get expert dominance, where they just dismiss a great idea from a non-expert because, well, what do they know?
So how do you break that logjam? If your experts are stuck, what do you do as a leader?
You have to introduce a little friction. You can, for instance, encourage non-experts to challenge the expert opinions. Bring in a fresh perspective.
I like the idea from the source material about using games or simulations.
Yes. You take people out of their normal context, you put marketers in a military research scenario or something, and it forces them to think in new ways, to break out of their ruts.
And ultimately, you have to accept that you might not find the perfect answer.
You just have to make a decision. The best one you can with the data you have now.
And that idea is really the bridge to the other side, the unordered world. Because if the data is just too messy to analyze, you're probably not in a complicated problem anymore.
Exactly. You've just entered the complex domain, the domain of emergence. And this is where fact-based management stops working.
This is the realm of the unknown unknowns. And this is so important for leaders today because this is where things like innovation and real culture change happen.
It really is. And people confuse complicated and complex all the time.
I love the analogy they use. A Ferrari is complicated.
Right. You can take it apart, you can analyze every single piece, put it back together, and you understand how it works.
But the Brazilian rainforest, that's complex.
That's the perfect way to think about it. The whole is so much greater than the sum of its parts. It's defined by flux, by unpredictability. You can only understand cause and effect by looking backwards, in retrospect.
Things are the way they are because they got that way.
Not because someone designed them. And that means the action sequence has to flip completely. It feels counterintuitive, but it's probe, sense, respond.
You don't analyze a complex system. You have to probe it.
And patiently let the path forward reveal itself. And this is key. You have to run parallel, safe-to-fail probes, not one big sequential experiment.
Why parallel?
Because in a complex system, the environment itself is changing while you're running your test. So by the time you finish testing option A, the world has changed, and the results are irrelevant for option B. You have to run lots of small, low-risk probes at the same time and see what patterns emerge.
The Apollo 13 crisis is just the ultimate example of this.
Oh, absolutely. The problem was completely complex. They didn't have a manual for it.
So the engineers on the ground didn't analyze their way out. They grabbed what the astronauts had, tape, plastic bags, socks.
And they just started trying things. They probed and probed until they sensed a combination that might actually work. A solution emerged.
And the danger for leaders here is just immense, because your instinct is to demand a plan, to ask for fail-safe results.
To fall back on command and control. But if you try to impose order on a complex system, the system will just ignore you. It will route around you. You have to be okay with failure, because failure is just more data.
It's a totally different mindset. It's not about closing a gap between here and a predetermined goal.
No, it's about starting a journey with a sense of direction, moving to what's called the adjacent possible, the next logical space, and then looking around again.
Like that song from Frozen to say, do the next right thing.
It's a surprisingly good summary of complex leadership. Focus on the immediate forward motion, not the final destination.
Okay, so that brings us to the last of the four main domains. What happens when things just completely fall apart?
Then you're in the chaotic context, the domain of rapid response. This is the realm of the unknowables.
We're talking total turbulence. There's no relationship between cause and effect you can find, no manageable patterns.
Think about the first few hours after 9/11, or a massive ransomware attack that completely wipes out your project data a month before you're supposed to launch.
The action sequence here flips again. It becomes act, sense, respond.
Your first job is to stop the bleeding. You have to act immediately, decisively. Top-down direct communication. Your goal is to reestablish some kind of order.
You act first to create stability, then you can sense what's going on.
And then you respond by trying to shift the situation out of chaos and into the complex domain where you can start to probe.
So this is the one place where that top-down authoritarian leadership is actually essential.
It's imperative. People often point to Rudy Giuliani's actions right after 9/11. He was visible, he was issuing clear directives, he was reestablishing a basic sense of order.
But there's a paradox here, too.
A huge one. The chaotic domain is actually the best place to drive innovation.
Because all the old rules are broken.
Everyone is desperate for a solution, any solution. So they're suddenly wide open to novel ideas in a way they would never be in that stable, clear domain.
The danger, of course, is the leader who is successful in chaos can develop a bit of a hero complex.
The cult of the leader. They stick with that command and control style long after the crisis is over, and they end up stifling the very emergence they need.
So the key is to manage both at once.
Yes. You appoint a crisis team to act, sense, respond, and at the same time, you appoint a separate team to look for the opportunities for new ways of doing things that the crisis has opened up.
So that's the four quadrants. But what about that space in the middle? What happens when you just You have no idea which domain you're in.
That's the fifth domain. It's called disorder, sometimes confused or aporetic.
And it's characterized by cacophony.
Cacophony of competing ideas. Different people think the problem is simple. Others think it's complex. Others are screaming that it's chaotic. Everyone is jostling.
And the way out isn't to ask a process question, like how do we decide?
No, the way out is to ask what's called an aporetic question. It's a question that forces you to think differently about where you even are.
So you break the problem down.
You have to. You break the situation down into its component parts and assign each piece to its proper domain. Is the communication part of this clear? Is the technical glitch complicated? Is the public reaction complex? Then you can act.
That real-world example of Deputy Chief Walter Guestior during the Palatine murders in '93 is such a powerful illustration of this.
It's a masterclass in using the framework. It was a horrific, random crime, and he had to use 4 different leadership styles at the same time.
So he immediately went into the chaotic domain by getting in front of the media, acting decisively to stop the panic.
That was act, sense, respond. Then he managed the clear domain by just making sure the police department's normal procedures kept running. Don't let the basics fall apart.
For the technical investigation, the forensics, that was complicated. He brought in outside experts.
Sense, analyze, respond. But his most brilliant move was how he handled the community's fear. That was a complex problem.
Right. He didn't impose a solution.
No. A complicated approach would have been to hire a consultant to give a presentation. Instead, he created an open forum for parents and students. He managed the conditions and let solutions emerge from the community itself. That's probe, sense, respond.
So, since so much of modern business innovation market changes lives in that complex domain, let's talk about some specific tools for leaders.
Okay, the first one is about opening up the discussion using what are called large group methods. The great example is positive deviance.
What's positive deviance?
Instead of looking outside for best practices, you look inside your own system. The assumption is that someone, somewhere in your organization, is already solving this problem, even with all the same constraints as everyone else.
So you find that person, the positive deviant, and you figure out what they're doing differently.
And then you amplify that. You help that successful pattern emerge across the whole system. The Plexus Institute used this to lower hospital infections by 50%.
Incredible. Okay, another tool is setting barriers.
Yes, in a complex system, you can't manage the outcomes, but you can manage the boundaries. Think of eBay in the early days. A few simple rules for buyers and sellers.
Pay on time, deliver the goods.
Right. Those simple barriers allowed a hugely complex and safe marketplace to emerge on its own.
Next up, stimulating attractors.
These are just small probes that resonate with people and start to gain momentum. Pierre Omidyar launching AuctionWeb, the site before eBay, that was a probe. He sensed a pattern. People wanted this. And that became an attractor, which then led to new emergent attractors, like people starting to sell cars on the site, which he never planned.
And another one I love, encouraging dissent. Specifically, ritual dissent.
This is such a smart technique. You have 2 teams work on the same problem. Team A presents their idea. A spokesperson from Team B listens in total silence.
While the rest of Team B openly critiques Team A's presentation.
Exactly. The structure forces open, honest critique, and it forces the presenters to actually listen without getting defensive. It helps everyone see the patterns more clearly.
And finally, managing starting conditions.
If you can't predict the outcome, control the environment. This is 3M's famous 15% rule, letting researchers spend time on whatever interested them. They managed the conditions for creativity, and the Post-it note emerged.
So wrapping this all up, what's the big takeaway for you, the leader, listening to this?
The whole point of Cynefin is that different things work in different contexts. You have to understand your context, and you have to be willing to change your leadership style to match it.
It requires you to act against your own instincts sometimes.
It's a paradox. You have to know when to share power and trust the group like in the complex domain, and know when to wield it alone and be directive, which is what you must do in the chaotic domain. The flexibility is everything.
And that leads us to a final provocative thought for you to take away. The dominant way we think in business is about setting goals and closing gaps. That's the ordered approach.
Right. But complexity thinking is about describing where you are now and starting a journey with a general sense of direction.
So think about a challenge you're facing right now, professional or personal. Is your first instinct to try and close the gap, or is it to start a journey? And how might applying the right action sequence for its true domain sense categorize, sense analyze, or probe sense completely change your very next step?